Hi everyone, welcome back to another exciting and inspiring episode of the Inspired Life Vancouver. I'm your host Zara Durrani. It's been such a pleasure and a complete privilege and honor bringing you amazing Vancouver locals who are making a positive impact and inspiring me. Joining me today is an unbelievably talented and beautiful actress who I don't even think she needs an introduction because she's been in every show under the sun, filmed in Canada, in LA, in Toronto, in Vancouver, like all over the place. And not only TV shows, but also video games. And she's made the cover of many magazines, voted in Maxim's like one of the top 100 beautiful women in the world. I'm talking about none other than Emmanuelle Vaugier. Welcome. Bonjour, madame. Ça va bien?
Ça va bien. Thank you for having me.
My very little French. Tu es très belle, madame.
Oh, merci. Vous êtes belle aussi.
Oh, merci, merci. Okay, we will go into our French now. This is the end of my French. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing the sunshine with your beautiful yellow dress. You look lovely.
Thank you, as do you.
Thank you. I was talking earlier and so glad I found out that you're such a big fan of dogs and animals in general. I was saying to Tiara, my co-producer, I'm so grateful no one has been severely allergic to dogs or severely afraid of dogs. We've had a few people who were kind of afraid, but when they met Loki, who's sleeping down over here, they were like, wow, he's so gentle.
I mean, he's a little bit vicious. He tried to attack me in the elevator. No. With kisses, with lots of kisses. He's so sweet. He was like nibbling on my shoe. I'm like, oh, puppyhood.
Oh, and you have lots of animals. You have 2 dogs yourself.
Yes.
Obviously, we're starting the interview talking about dogs because even before I had Loki, I could not even walk a block without saying hello to a dog or 2 that I saw. So tell me about your love affair for animals, which also led you to start your own nonprofit. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I always had dogs growing up, specifically poodles. That was, the hypoallergenic choice that my mother was definitely allergic to cats. Is allergic. She's not dead. She's still with us. So yeah, she's definitely allergic to cats. A cat has not killed her yet. But growing up, she didn't want to get up. We begged her for, cat, dog, anything. And she didn't want to get into a situation where, one of us was allergic or also she's allergic and we have to, find the pet a new home. So she thought, all right, well, let's go with the hypoallergenic breed and get a poodle. And so that's how that started. And I've had poodles all my life and I still have them to this day. I have now a little poodle and a Maltese poodle mix, and who's my first, not full poodle, which was and first boy as well. I was like, whoa, okay.
It's so it's so fascinating with the male dogs. I did not know what I was getting myself into. Loki's not neutered yet. Everything needs to be marked. I'm used to getting pulled in so many directions. Now, before meeting you, obviously I'm very familiar with you, your name, your work, many magazines. But I was like, I need to sit down and watch you, Google you, YouTube, watching these old clips of you. I think there was a charity event that you did for Fluffball, and you had a Chihuahua then.
It wasn't. No, that was one of the dogs that was a rescue that was from the foundation we were supporting. Yeah.
Okay, that's so fantastic that you're doing that work. Obviously you have such a busy acting career. You travel a lot with your work. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your passion for getting started to help animals.
For me, it was it started back in 2009. I was like, okay, I'd like to find a way to give back and do something for the community that I'm in and where was my passion? Where did my passion lie? There's so many great organizations when it comes to giving back. Everything from kids to it's just never ending. So and if we all liked the same thing, we'd be in big trouble because So for me, it was animals, and so it started with hosting a little event at my house at the time, and raising money that way for Best Friends Animal Society at the time, and then did an event with them the next 2 years. Then we moved on to a different organization The Animal Hope and Wellness Foundation that was focusing mostly on domestic cats and dogs, like severe abuse cases in the Los Angeles area. So I wanted to focus on a smaller organization that was like a grassroots that needed a lot of help, that didn't necessarily have the funding from big corporations, things like that. He's now doing very, very well, and gets a substantial amount of funding, and which, I mean, they always need more, but he's doing great work. And so we worked with them for a few years. Then we worked with Forgotten Horses Rescue, which rescued horses from slaughter. Did that, and then the last few years hit, and the world kind of grinded to a halt. And we were planning our 2020 event, and that just kind of, nothing happened. So this past year, I've been looking to partner with a new organization, and we actually, just in the last few weeks, is what I was looking for. I was like, I want an organization that rescues horses and works with children in some capacity, whether it's therapeutic or anything, like, and it just that combines the two. And I couldn't, for whatever reason, was not able to find the perfect magical, either it wasn't rescued horses or whatever. So it fell into my lap through a friend maybe 3 weeks ago now. And we found Horses and Heroes, and they're just outside of Ocala, Florida. And what they do is they work with retired show horses that either can be ridden still, but just a much more chilled out capacity, or they aren't ridden anymore, but they're cared for. And young girls who come from either challenging home lives, or live at or below the poverty line, a lot of them. And Mindy Morrow runs the program, and what she does is she makes sure they raise money and make sure that they get the families what they need, whether it be groceries or gas to put in the car so they can get the kids from one place to another. And she also teaches them horsemanship and how to ride and all that stuff, and how to care for a horse. So they have that, that camaraderie at the ranch with Mindy and the horses, and it's very healing for the girls. And all the girls that have been through that program and have stuck with it have all graduated high school, and they've all gone on to either join the military or different types of careers that that they maybe wouldn't have had they hadn't had the opportunity to step out of their home lives.
That sounds so wonderful and meaningful. Equine therapy was something that I was introduced to like a few years back, and one of my friends was working with people dealing with substance abuse issues, and another friend of mine actually did an MBA program in Switzerland, and part of that was working with horses and an equine therapist, and noticing how where you're holding trauma in your body, and how the energy that you're giving in the world, the horse is going to give that to you directly. So last year for my birthday, I decided to treat myself I first had a big party here, and then I went in the middle of BC. We found this ranch. It's called Whetstone.
Okay.
And it's like in the interior, and they would have horses who've been abused, and they don't trust humans anymore. And this family, these sisters and their parents who run this place, so when I stayed there, they were letting the horses just wander around, and the ones that were still healing, they were on the other side, but they would work on building trust. And I got a chance to, I forget what is the name of it, but how they pair, what is the word? I can't think of the exact word, but I got to work on building trust with a horse, and it was the most phenomenal experience. And then when the trust was built, they didn't want to leave. So I saw some of your videos, and I was very fascinated in talking to you about horses, and I can tell you're very passionate about your horse.
Yeah, it's they are such magical animals, and have such a purpose and a place in our society that can be so beneficial to people, especially with trauma and addiction and those types of things. I actually have a friend who did an extensive training it was like you have to be psychologist, or you have to have a certain degree to even begin training. So it's a somatic equine healing, and she was blown away by the stuff that she learned, and I can't wait to actually go and like work with her, like in the facility or somewhere with her, because she's become very good at it. So she's like an old friend that she now lives in Napa. So I'm like, I could go to Napa for, a number of reasons.
Yeah.
One of which is seeing my friend.
You can take us with you, because I've been really wanting to do a segment on horses and equine therapy, and I just...
Perfect.
We're ready to go. Hey, Tiara, rock and roll. We'll have Loki in tow. He loves horse poo-poo.
Oh yeah, they all do. Horse poopies and the shavings, the hoof shavings. Yeah, it's a thing.
It's totally a thing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. What a career you've had. Obviously we wanted to get off talking about animals because we had my little baby here sniffing your feet and like loving you as we got up here in the elevator. Thank you so much for sharing your story, but I want to talk about your career. I've heard through a lot of your interviews you accidentally got into acting, and then you have had this massive career of doing video games, photo shoots, magazines, like your fan base from like a Lost Girl, 2.5 Men, like working in Vancouver, LA, Toronto, like all over the place. What does it feel like to know you've been in over 100 film and television projects?
It feels like I should be way more famous than I am.
I think you're totally famous. I was showing Tiara I'm like, look who is coming on our show. Like over 111 projects. Like, wow, I'm like, you're probably just used to being picked and prodded, like hair, makeup, like everything all the time.
That doesn't bother me. So I don't even notice it anymore when people are working. I'm just like, it doesn't. They're like, oh, your eyeball, and they're like, this is it doesn't really faze me. That stuff, yes, that's kind of just second nature now. But yeah, I feel like I should be a little. No, how does it feel? I'm really proud of the different projects that I've been able to work on, the variety that I've had in my career, and the opportunities to travel and the people that I've met, all of those things. I mean, it's been a blessing. But yeah, I didn't really. Well, I fell into it accidentally, sort of. Like, I was the understudy in like the second grade play, my school play, and the girl got sick.
I read that on your IMDb trivia.
Accidentally got sick.
Did you put a little...
I don't know what happened to her. She was never seen again. I did the rest of the run of the play. I don't know. And I just got, I caught the bug that way, and it really enjoyed it, and told my parents, oh yeah, I want to be an actress, and I really love it. And they're like, great, when you could drive or take the bus by yourself, you can take yourself to auditions. So I was like, oh. So I waited until I was a teenager to like really pursue it properly, but in the meantime did like school plays and stuff, and spent a few years modeling in Japan for a while. That was a fun experience, very eye-opening, and by the way, okay, I saw Sound of Freedom. And now it makes me look back at like my travels to Japan and like Taiwan and Korea and go, I was 16 by myself with like other, I remember my dad not being so keen on the idea, and my mom was like, she'll be fine. And literally now I'm like, oh my God. My dad was, I know exactly what my dad was thinking after. I was like, geez, like, I was lucky. I was in good hands, and people were, treated me well, but.
And yeah. I'm sure it probably opened your eyes to the world and maybe gave you a travel bug as well, because there's something really special about, especially if you've grown up here in Canada. I grew up in Pakistan, grew up traveling around the world, and by the age of 7, lived in 7 different countries. And it puts something in your blood that desires culture and different food and people and languages. I'm sure that by doing that, it probably opened your eyes that someone in the same class as you who didn't get to have that experience would look at the world very differently, because going to Japan from here, from Canada, like,
Yeah.
you know, when you land there, like, I've only been to Narita Airport, like, I haven't really, I've always wanted to go to Tokyo and really experience, I hear, spring in
Yes.
spring in Tokyo, like, you need the cherry blossoms, like, you need to experience that once in your life. So getting into modeling, I love to ask, you know, like, every female actor or performer or media personality I've had on the show, I love talking to them about beauty and, you know, what does beauty mean to you, and what does being beautiful, because having modeling from such a young age, when, you know, you're like, I didn't get to travel internationally, but there is that thing that it's taken me time to learn to, how do I put it, for myself. For a long time, I would be like measuring myself or those kinds of things, and then through yoga teacher training and breath work and studying acting, I was like, no, that is this different thing of the inner radiance.
It's funny you say the measuring, because I literally, like, all through my modeling days and long after, probably for like a good 10 years after, I had a logbook, and every morning I would take my measurements. Like, which is so screwed up. Like, that's, but having said that, like, back when I modeled, like, if you didn't stay a certain size, like, you know, I mean, it's one thing, oh, you have to be thin, whatever, but the reality is, in Japan, for me, if I didn't stay a certain size, I didn't fit the clothing.
Yeah.
So you and you would not work, and you would get sent home. I know this because I got sent home the first time I was there, because I gained a bunch of weight, because I was like, I wasn't used to, you know, I was just like a teenager, and used to be like 14 or 15, no, it was 16, and when I first went over, and I was just used to being like, I was just thin. And then I wasn't. Like, I mean, I was.
You're
still
eating
thin,
all the
but,
ramen
like, yeah.
and the sushi.
Oh, I was like out there eating the street food with like that much oil in it, you know, like, I just didn't know. And then all of a sudden nothing's fitting, and they're like, So then I learned my lesson, and I was like, okay, but I did it in the, you know, I started exercising, I started walking a lot, and I started doing those things because I was like, I like food. I don't want to not have to be able to eat, and that's not healthy. So I was like, how do I do this without, you know, starving myself? Which sadly, a lot of the time, that's what you see, a lot of that out there. But so I was lucky that I had, actually, one of the other models that lived with me was very healthy and did that. She kind of took me under her, she was older, and she took me under her wing, and she's like, here, you know, like, this is what I do, and, you know, and gave me some good books about nutrition and things like that, and fitness to read, which was like, I just was lucky that somebody handed that to me, because I didn't know.
And this is like a little bit ago, because now people are talking about the mind-body connection and eating well, because it shows on your skin, in your eyes, and when you're not nourishing your body, when you're posing or acting or whatever, I think in terms of energy, it just like shows, the camera reads that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, I think it's really important to, you know, eat well, and, like, yes, the mind-body connection has such, especially in film and TV, like, I find that it requires so much more energy for you to be present, and, like, with retention of dialogue and all of those things, like, you just need to be well rested and be eating well and drinking enough water, and there are things, like, you just forget sometimes, like, or you're on set and there's not what you need to eat, and you're not drinking enough water, and you're just having coffee after coffee, you know, and you have to remind yourself,
so
you're like, why do I feel,
yeah.
totally guilty. And then you're like, why do I feel like crap at the end of the day? And you're like, oh, I've had like 2 sips of water today, like 18 cups of coffee. That's not good. And I'm like, why am I vibrating?
And I need more. I'm so good. As you look over to her, I was like looking over at me. She's like, guilty.
Speaking of water.
Yeah, speaking of water, I would love to talk about 2.5 Men. What was it like working on that show? And that show has a bit of a cult following. It's also one of those shows that I feel like whenever I turn on the television, that show would be on.
Yes, it's definitely one of those ones that's always on some channel somewhere, or multiple channels everywhere. But yeah, it was. I mean, I remember, starting the show in its second season, and I had never really done a sitcom, and live audience was terrifying to me. The whole idea of it, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to do this? And you learn, like, and I remember the first episode, Charlie, like, he was like, what are you worried about? And I'm like, just like, I think he could tell that I was a bit nervous about it. I'm like, the live audience. I'm like, oh my God, it's just like terrifying. And he's like, well, they're not here because, they hate us. They're here because they love the show. And, and I was like, well, that actually makes sense. It makes me feel a lot better. I don't know why it was like that simple, but in my head, I was just like, oh God, what if they don't like me, or don't, like, I suck or whatever. I just didn't, And when he said that, I was like, that made sense. And then it kind of calmed me down. And week after week, it was, I would start looking forward to it because it was actually a lot of fun.
So he sounded like he was very welcoming.
Oh, he was very welcome. He was very quiet during my time on the show, but he was very nice and always very lovely to me. So, yeah.
Any particular highlights from that show for you?
I remember okay, well, my favorite episode to do was my singing episode, because I got to just sing and be silly, and anyone who knows me knows I love to karaoke, but I don't karaoke well.
Are you like not well, like Cameron Diaz in My Best Friend's Wedding kind of well?
Depends on the song. Could be that bad.
I Will Always Love You.
Yeah, it can be pretty bad, or it can be like moderately okay, but like it's never great. So it was fun to just not have to be good and have a good time singing. So that was most memorable episode. And then one of the things that happened, like there's an episode where I throw a bouquet of roses at Charlie's head as he's leaving.
I think I remember that.
Yeah. So we were working with the fake roses, and and they didn't really carry. So I throw them, they kind of fall, and like Charlie's like, just chuck it, and I'm like, okay. So like did that, and it was fine. Then we go to shoot it, and they hand me the real bouquet of roses, and I go to do the same thing with the bouquet of roses, and it just beans Charlie in the head. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, like I saw him kind of just like his body stiffen, and I was like, oh no.
You wanted me to do this.
I was like, you told me to throw it. You told me to throw the bouquet. I just did what I was told.
He's like, stunt pay.
Yeah, I'm like, I just killed Charlie. So yeah, and he was very, very nice about it. I was like, I am so sorry. I was like, oh crap.
This is for last week.
Oh yeah, he was like, and then I never came back to the show after that. It's weird. So yeah, that was, oh no, that's funny. Okay. There we go.
That's amazing. It sounds like a very fun memory. We were talking earlier. I was, checking out again some videos on YouTube. Both my brothers are super gamers. Like in high school, they were very like, the whole headset and the gaming community, like those kind of nerdy.
Like the chair, the gaming chair and it moves.
Oh God! And then they're talking to these people like around, and now thank goodness there's Twitch, and like people actually make money like talking and like.
Oh, they do? I guess they do,
yes.
Right? And then they're paid to play the games.
Yeah, can you believe that? And like, is that a thing? You can like have your passion turn into like monetize that. One of my guy friends was telling me like, this is what he's doing. He's like this big guy, and he's telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm making a lot of money going live. Anyways, I digress. I was so excited to see you did something with EA, like Need for Speed. Like, what a cool experience. You're like immortalized through the video, through all the video footage that I was taking a look at, and you got to also go on a racetrack and do all these exciting things. Do you recall that? I guess I'm just go digging through the library, like looking at all this old footage of yours.
Well, the racetrack wasn't real because we were all green screen.
Okay.
So we went.
But
nowhere.
they didn't allow you to like go and practice somewhere.
We didn't drive
at all.
I didn't drive anything.
Okay.
We got in and out of like fake what looked like a car, and we'd sat because they designed everything around us. So it was a green backdrop with like marks on them, and it was just very technical.
Green screen, yeah.
Green screen. So that's when, and then I did a lot of like all the voiceover stuff for the game, like, where I'm like, their wingman or wingwoman or whatever, and giving them advice and whatnot. And then they had the little scenes that happen in between levels, I guess. But yeah, it was a fascinating process. I'd never done one before, and it was really cool.
And you look, it's so you. It looked super cool. I was like, wow, I would love to do something like that. And I'm like, is she gonna get like superpowers or something next, or what's gonna happen? I'm sure like lots of guys watching or wanting to play the game, they're like, yes, I get to see her in real life and also play this video game with her. You were in Lost Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
That was like the little engine that could. Like, it was literally like this little show. Had no idea what it was going to be. I got a call saying they want you to do this. What do you think? And this is the character. Blah blah blah. Whatever. And I was like, yeah, this sounds like it could be fun. And it wasn't like a huge time commitment. Like, they had me down to like a few days an episode, and I could just fly in and fly out. So I was like, great. And then it just turned into the most magical show in terms of the cast. Like, we all just became great friends. We've traveled together. We've stayed in touch all these years. Like, and it grew this incredible cult following with really very little publicity for the show. Like, they didn't really do much with the shows in terms of publicity. So it was just word of mouth, and it was, I guess we were like in the top 10 most illegally downloaded shows in the world. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's good, I guess. I mean, we're popular, but no one's getting paid. But it was a really fun show to do, and we've done, a ton of Comic-Con type stuff for that, and that's always great to get to see the fans, and like they've been really just. The Lost Girl fans are so loyal and so wonderful when we meet them. It's just like some of them have become friends. It's like, yeah, it's cool.
So on that show, in the first season, you were just a little bit in the beginning, and then the next season, your character arc, like there was more of you and it developed more. Tell me about like working on shows, and you're working long days, long hours, like for example, something like Lost Girl or 2.5 Men. How do you deal with that? Like, when you're working like 5 days a week, what is your self-care routine like? How do you care for yourself, your nutrition and your fitness? What are you doing for self-care to like perform on camera on a daily basis when you're coming in every day?
I mean, whether it's 2.5 Men, which is a lighter schedule, like a sitcom schedule, is fairly different as far as the hours, a lot less hours. But in general, my routine is the same. It's just how much I can do it. I like to, I work out 5 to 6 days a week, which includes like, going to the gym or running, or like whether it's weights, cardio, Pilates, yoga, it's something. I try to get in as much walking as I can, but that can be, I go on long walks. It's not always ideal depending on how much time you have and where you are and the weather and those types of things. So if, I always ask for accommodations that has like a gym either in the building, preferably, because then you can just go right there, and or close by. If not, sometimes it's not possible. You're in locations that's just not going to happen. I travel with like bands, and I have like online workouts that I can do, and yeah, I just make whatever I can. I mean, I've done like bicep curls with a chair.
What?
Because and overhead lifts, like just because there was nothing.
I know, I can see your pipes. I'm like,
I gotta stay strong. But you just make whatever you have work, and it's important to me because not only for just the physical sort of side of things and appearance-wise, but also mentally. I find like it's for my mental health, it's really important. And then so same thing with nutrition too. It's just I try to eat as clean as possible. I don't torture myself. Like, I eat the cake, I have the hot chocolate, I have the glass of wine. Like, it's not.
I'm enjoying hearing that, because I was just taking a bite of a croissant and I'm like, yep, I am that girl. I feel like for me, my fitness and everything's kind of slowly gone downhill, even though we're just filming 1 or 2 days a week, but in between life and everything. So I love asking, especially other women, how you balance. And for me, it's like, depending on the time of the month, when I'm going for the donut and the bag of chips and the Coca-Cola, like everything, it's like, okay, like we're just gonna go there. I find it like when I first started, I was like, yes, I'm lifting, I'm doing my aerial yoga. I'm just giving up.
You're like, whatever, bring me the croissant. Can you dip it in chocolate? That's even better. I think you do what you can, right?
Yeah.
Because like I don't kill myself over it. I don't beat myself up about it if I can't get to the gym because we've had a 16-hour day. I'm like, well, you know what? We had a 16-hour day. That burnt off a lot of energy, and like I need my sleep is more important at this point. But when I can fit it in, even if it's just 20 minutes on the treadmill, like intervals, and that's all I can get in, great. Do that, stretch, I feel better. So I just, and sometimes I'm just like, I'm too tired, and getting up and doing that is going to wreck my day because I'm going to be so exhausted. There are those days too, right? So you just kind of, I take every day as a different, like just see what I feel like and how I feel and try to push myself because it's easy just to stay in bed, but yeah. And then you're like, oh, and then I don't have to wash my hair today because it's still clean from yesterday and I'm not going to sweat. So then it's less time in the hair makeup chair and all of those, I don't have to wash it, so that's just less time period. I can just roll it, and so
Sleep
easy
is
to
important.
get there,
I know. I feel you. I totally feel you. Tell me, what has life been for you, like since all of our worlds changed since 2020? I came back from Paris like literally right before the lockdown. I'm so happy to see people really talking about mental health and self-care a lot. We work really long hours in the film industry, like 12, 16. I remember working behind the scenes on a CW show. It was like 18 hours.
Oh yeah.
I remember those were the fratter days. How do you balance that? Do you like meditate? Like, do you journal? Is there any, other than the physical self-care, from fitness to nutrition, are there any healing things that you like to do that are for your inner self, for balancing and grounding yourself?
Few things since 2020. Like, so I have a horse, and so riding and going to the barn is a huge part of my day and a huge part of my life now. Spending time with her, and that for me is my sort of meditation / like mental health. It really, that grounds me. That really sort of, it's me and her, and it's just you're just, there's a connection there, and it's very healing and very therapeutic in many, many ways for me. So that definitely grounds me and gives me a lot of peace and sort of balance in my life. The other thing is, because 2020, now everybody works from home, works virtually, it changed the landscape, even in the film industry, even like it's a lot of stuff is just done virtually. You're putting yourself on tape for stuff. And it was happening before, but once that happened, that was the norm more than not. And if you need to come in for something, it gets to a point where like they want to meet you in person. If it needs to be done, you can fly in and do that. It's not so. It's kind of given a lot of people. I mean, for me, some people like that, some people don't. Some people miss being in the room. I think there's things that are important with being in the room. You reading people's energy, and like there's just something magical about that. However, I do love the freedom about choosing the quality of life that I want to have, and that doesn't need to center around being in Los Angeles full time. And so for me, that's been a blessing, because I can pick and choose when I go, how long I'm there for, and then I can get the hell out and live my life and just be where I need to be. And that to me has been the biggest gift of the last handful of years.
I feel like in LA there's such a vibe of like whether you're at a gas station or you could be at a pharmacy or wherever, anyone and everyone and their dog is in the industry, and there's a vibration of like somehow being that and somehow being always being on to like perform, or like I don't know who I'm gonna meet or what's gonna happen, which can be exciting, but it's nice to have a bit of that calm. And I think Vancouver is such a good place for that, where it's like, okay, yes, we are in the biz here, but you can also fly to LA for work, and you can get out into Whistler or North Van for a hike, which can be just so nice to disconnect from even computers or even living in downtown here and get out there and just like calm your nervous system. What do you do to prep for these roles and these? You've played such a diverse range of characters, you know, from all these like rom-coms to Christmas movies, Hallmarks to Lost Girl, like all these, you know, Two and a Half Funny, like all these different characters you've played. How do you prep yourself for them?
Few things. I mean, it depending on what it is, but oftentimes, like I work with like I have a few different coaches that I've worked with over the years, and not to like, it's more to like run, like basically go through the script, and like I'll read it a bunch of times, and then we'll go through it together and kind of like talk about stuff, and then if there's scenes that we want to go over or like and just run them, just to sort of get a sense of what's happening. Like if there's tricky scenes where it's like, okay, I'm not quite sure, like I'd like to sort of figure out where I'm going with this before I'm there on the day and trying to, you know, navigate it there, even though there's some of that on the day anyways. I do that, like I do ask for help. And with sitcom, like when I first started doing that, like that was a huge shift for me. I'd never done sitcom. It's a whole different world. Like it's the rhythm and like all the technical stuff, reversals, and it's stuff I had to learn. So I went to a coach that was specifically like a sitcom, you know, like I had a couple people that helped me, but yeah, I definitely enlisted the help of people who that's what they do, you know. That's, and you know, people like to pretend like they don't use coach. Like so many people use coaches. Some people don't, and that's their thing. But I mean, you know, it's not uncommon, as I'm sure you know, in this business. But people love to pretend they did it all on their own.
I know this may sound super simple. Were you naturally gifted at memorizing? I feel I've heard stories. I won't say which actor. They were filming something here and they're like, yeah, they had this earpiece in, like this other person, like really saying their lines to them, and then this person would say the line out.
Really? Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I don't know how you like have a connection with the other actor like that you're doing the scene with, if that's what you're doing. That's crazy.
They're like big stars, so I wouldn't say who, but they're like, yeah, this person was like drinking on set, and it was a big project that came to Vancouver, and they were just doing the pickups in Vancouver for this, and there's another person like, so were you naturally gifted at memorizing lines?
No, I mean, I'm always so envious of people who can like look at like giant chunks of dialogue and like for like 2 minutes and be like, oh yeah, I got it. I'm like, screw you. Like, that's not fair. I work at it. It's through repetition for me. Just, yeah. And some stuff, depending on the writing too. Like if it's written really well and it flows really well, it sticks. It's easier to have it stick, and like, you know, and when you've got big chunks of dialogue, of course you got to sort of break it down and like kind of, you know, for me to like absorb it. But yeah, like, I mean, you know, trying to memorize like doctor and lawyer dialogue that's like all just technical,
very scientific, and
oh my god, it's like my idea of my worst nightmare for a job. Like I don't want, like I'm okay with saying that. It's like I've actually turned down just audition just based on that. I'm like, I don't want to do this for 8 years. This is not, I don't care how much money. There's no one can pay me enough money to sit here and
to take hours to like memorize all this.
Life's too short. Life's too short. I was like, because it's no, you're spending your entire downtime memorizing that stuff, or at least I would be. Some people are good at memorizing that. I'm not. Like, I need to be memorizing, like, other stuff.
I got this audition the other day, and I had to like say a line over. First, I had to figure out how to say encephalopathy, and then using it in a sentence over and over again, English being a second language. Sometimes I just reverse the word.
What does that even mean? What is it? Do you know what it is?
It is, yeah. It was to do with the brain. So it's pretty much like starts in the liver and how it affects the brain. And anyways, I was just so curious. I'm like, well, I can see you being in one of those, but you don't want to do one of those medical doctor shows.
There can be scenes of that, but like the ones where it's all like just heavy, like you're that character that just, because there's always the guy or the girl that's their job on that show, is like they're constantly just, and it's not just 2 lines, it's like pages of just,
like blah blah blah.
Yeah, and it's a skill. I mean, it's a whole other skill set, and I don't know that it's not enjoyable to me, I guess is what it comes down to. I want to do stuff I enjoy doing, and that to me just does not spell enjoyment in any way.
Who would you say have been I think the first, just to say one character would be hard. Can you say like two to three characters that you've portrayed that really stand out for you, that you're like, wow, I got to do that, or I get to portray this character that meant so much to me or was so different than who I am, that I'm proud of the work that I did in that role?
That's a good question. One of the characters I would say would be the Morrigan on Lost Girl, because it was just so much fun. Like, it was just a liberty, like, to just be big and bold and crazy, and and in that world it wasn't deemed like overacting or anything. It was still grounded in something, but it was bigger than life, that character. So I'm grateful that I got to play that, because that was just fun. Like it's you don't often get to do that kind of thing, or I haven't often gotten to do that. And that would be the main ones.
I saw your co-stars, sorry to jump in there, were even like, yeah, you just like lit up the room. Like the choices you would make, again, thanks to you too. I'm such a nerd. I'm like removing my makeup. I'm like watching all these videos.
You're doing your homework.
Yeah. And she was like, wow, the choices you made, like you would just lit up a room, and they were so specific, but also sexy and charismatic and charming.
I paid them to say that.
Yeah. She was like, yeah, you were like truly amazing.
I have dirt on every single one. No, that's very kind of them to say. I remember them saying those things, and it's very, I was blessed that they wrote really well for my character, for one, and I also had like great actors to work with as well that helped, bring that energy to life. Because if you are working with someone who's not, that's giving you nothing, it's hard to it's much easier if you've got other actors that also are charismatic and are lively and like bring that out of you. It just elevates everything. So I think we were lucky on that show that we all sort of had great chemistry together.
Any other role that stands out for you?
The 2.5 Men, me on 2.5 Men, just because that was a lot of fun as well. Very close to who I am as a person. It's not like it was like super different, but it was a challenge because it was sitcom, and I hadn't done that, and I felt really lucky that I got to do my first sitcom on that show.
And it was a big show.
It was
with a big following.
I had no idea until I was on it, and I was like, oh, I guess it's popular. Like, I'm glad I didn't know, because when I went into audition for it, like, I didn't really know what the show was. Had I known how, like, probably would have gotten really nervous, and it would have been a disaster, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. So, you know, and as far as something else, I don't know.
I'll let you think about that. I want to know, is there a particular kind of role that you're like, I'm dying to play something like that? Either something that is very similar to who you are, or a period piece, or a sci-fi, or something very different. Like, you know, like if anything was possible that you're like, I would love to do something like that, or like go in like ancient Egypt or ancient Rome. I can see like you sitting here with your waves and your darker hair. I can see you in that kind of
play Cleopatra.
Yeah,
that would be fun. I think doing a period Western would be a lot of fun. Horses and all, you know, and the costumes and the whole all of that. I think just would be good. And then honestly, now my biggest, I used to, and I still do, I love the idea of doing like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or like Salt, like that, you know, the badass kind of assassin thing, and the, you know, big action
I totally see that.
movie. That would be fun, or TV show. But outside of that, like just working with horses, like on anything, that to me is just like combining those two things. I'm a happy girl.
And you worked with Luke Perry.
Yes.
And he is like a city slicker who comes to town, and you're working on a ranch for that project?
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is, you know, I can ride, but Luke was like one of, like he was a true, like he knew how to ride. Like and he had to pretend to ride badly, which is not easy to do when you know how to ride. And he was like, I mean, I remember him coming across the field back and forth. He had like perfect lead changes going back and forth. I'm like, okay. And that was like at the end of the movie when he was supposed to kind of know how to ride. I'm like, even somebody who's just learned how to ride can't do that. But he was so funny. And yeah, he was a very, very, very talented horseman.
Amazing. And I was so excited to find out you worked with Carrie Fisher.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, Tell us about that.
That was cool. She was like kept to herself for the first. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm just gonna stay over here, let her come to me. And eventually,
you're like inside, you're freaking out, you're fangirling.
Inside, I was like, oh my god,
this is so happening.
And then eventually, like, you know, we started chatting a little bit eventually, and she was great. She was such a cool lady, very kind and very funny. Very, very, like, I love her, like just the dry, sarcastic sense of humor, which is right up my alley. So we got along well.
When you're on a film set or going to, for example, a new project, what is like a first day like for you? Are you nervous on a first day? Are you just getting the feeling of this is home? Like, for example, it's like a project that's going to be like, I don't know, you'll be working on for like a month, or it's a movie or a series. What are first days like for you? Do you get nervous?
No, not nervous so much as like, it's kind of like first day at school, right? Like I get the night before, like can't really sleep because you're excited, first day at school kind of thing, and then the first day is more like getting to know everybody and saying hi and just kind of seeing where, reading people's energies and kind of figuring out the tone and the vibe on set, and also depending on who you are in the cast, and like setting that tone and making sure it's a positive one, and that everybody's happy, and yeah, I like it. To me, the first day is always exciting and fun, and it's like I get to make new friends today, or maybe I'm working with people I already know, but it's
Or like when you finish a project, I was talking to a friend who's one of the main makeup artists on Riverdale, and they finished I think they were on for like 6-7 years or something. Mm-hmm. And she said, yes, we were like ready for it to end, but everyone was just like crying on the last day, posted this video of like turning off the lights, and
Right. Yeah. Well, because it's such a big part. I mean, that's your family. You spend so much time with these people that it really becomes a family. And even when you work just like for a few weeks together, it's like you're there 5 days a week, 18 hours a day with each other. It's 15 to 18 hours a day, and yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's magical. I think it's truly because the same group of people are not going to get together again, even if you may run into those people on several different projects. I think it's truly remarkable. And what would you say to your younger self, like your 16 or 19-year-old self, if you could go back in time right now? What advice would you give to her?
I mean, other than like avoiding certain dating situations.
I think that would be all of us. I would be like,
right.
I shake myself.
Don't engage with that man. No, it doesn't end well, and you'll have wasted several years. No, I think I don't know that I would say anything other because all the experiences that I've had have led me to where I am today. And if I had known certain things, I wouldn't have, I would have steered clear and not learned that lesson, and maybe done something, ended up, doing something that was more damaging or whatever. I don't know that I would necessarily say anything to her that would,
You're an acceptance of everything. That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's, other than like maybe like you're enough, like you are enough, like you don't need all the like just there's no one else like you're you, there's no one else like you, so you're okay, you're unique. But I mean, I think even that's like we kind of know that it's so.
What I mean, you've been in the industry for some time, like I mentioned earlier, over 111 plus counting credits, many different projects, many TV sets, movies, all of that. Anyone who's watching who's like, oh my God, if I could even have a tiny bit of the success you've had, what advice would you give to someone starting out, especially a young female actress?
I would say work hard, don't give up, keep going, keep studying. It's a journey. It's got its ups and downs, and it's not always going to be great, and it's not always going to suck, and you just got to sort of ride the wave. But yeah, it's if I could just have a tiny bit of the success thing, it's like it's never enough because you get to that place and then you're like, I just want that. If I could just have, and then it's because the bar always moves. Like it's always, the goalpost is always like you achieve one goal and then you're like, okay, well now I want, I've been a guest star on this show. I want to be a recurring. I want to be a series regular. I want to do movies. I want my own brand of makeup. I want like it's, I want to grow an empire. I want whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, everybody's different, obviously, but yeah, it's always going to change as you achieve your goals.
And one of the things you were mentioning earlier before we got started is that peace is something you value a lot now.
Yes. Quality of life, peace. It's nice to be able to separate. Like, I love my job and I love what I do, but it's very much a job. And it does not consume me and run my life. Like, there was a period of time where it was my life, and it is my life, but it's separate now. It's sort of like that's my job, and then I have a life, and there's I think I have better boundaries around it now than I did before, where I'm like I have my ability to say no has grown.
Or not working on weekends and taking time to yourself.
Right.
I completely get that. So the show is called Inspired Life Vancouver. I love to ask everyone who comes on the show, what inspires you in life? Where do you draw your inspiration from?
When I see people overcoming huge challenges or achieving huge goals in their lives, whether it's from an athletic point of view, like for me, watching, Olympic riders, like horseback riders, like jumping and doing things like that's inspiring to me. And then, hearing people's life stories and what they've been through, and learning, and connecting with people, I think that's inspiring to me.
I love that. That's what I've been saying about my job. I feel like I feel so honored that people get to open up and share their stories and sit here and go deep and dig deep here with me. So you live in Vancouver now. What do you love about living in Vancouver? Is there a particular spot, cafe, hike, trail that you like to do that you would like to share with our audience?
Well, I don't live in Vancouver.
Okay. I mean, surrounding areas. I wasn't going to say where you live, but I'm just saying in general.
Right. In general, I'm kind of a gypsy right now. So I'm in Vancouver some of the time. I'm in LA some of the time. I'm elsewhere some of the time.
Yeah.
But I like, I spend a lot of time out in the country and just walking trails and spending time at the barn with my horse because I have her up here right now. So, yeah. And with my dogs. So that's generally what my happy places, but I love Whistler. I love, my friend's been trying, my friend dragged me out to do a day trip to Gibson Island. I had no idea. I just was like, what are we doing? And I was like, this is magical and cool and amazing. I'm like, why don't we do this all the time? She's like, I know. I'm like, and it's right here.
It's available.
Like right
it doesn't take long to get there. And even with Whistler, one time, because every time we make so many stops, it literally takes an hour and a half if you don't stop to go up there. Because normally we're like making all these stops and it's right here. Mm-hmm. You don't have to fly, go to a different country. It's like magic.
Yeah. No, it totally is.
Well, what an honor having you on the show. I'm very excited about what's happening next for you.
Thank you.
We covered like so many things under the sun. I hope I can one day come and say hello to your horsey or play with your doggies. I know Loki loves to make friends. And
Loki's like, somebody said my name.
You're talking about me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there something that you would like to share with our audience before you go?
I guess it depends when this is airing.
It will be airing towards the end of September, beginning of October.
Okay. I have a movie coming out on Hallmark, Big Sky River Bridle Path, which was a sequel to the one that we did last year. So I'm not sure when it's airing a little ways into the future in August 11th of this year. And but I'm sure it'll be re-airing somewhere in Canada on the W Network, so they can look for that.
Oh, fantastic. That and many more projects.
Yes.
I foresee something in the ancient robe. I don't know why. Because you look beautiful with your waves and your dress. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. If you felt inspired today, please make sure to get in touch with us. Emmanuelle, merci beaucoup, madame.
Merci.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.